Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are after market close on Monday, October 11th. We're going to take our look at SoFi today. And SoFi had obviously a phenomenal day today off of some really good news that has been coming in. So at this point, we're starting to really kind of accumulate these great analyst ratings for SoFi and price targets. And that's sort of starting to overwhelm, I think, maybe some of retail or some of the institutional buyers who have been kind of waiting to come in, possibly looking for something along the bank charter side of things or to see what Q3 earnings shows us. And but I think it becomes hard to ignore the repetitive upgrades and price targets that have 40, sometimes 50% upside or more. I think at one point we're like high 70s% upside based on those price targets. And again, if you haven't heard me say this in a while, this is not because I think maybe even a lot of people think that those analyst price targets are accurate or correct, but it does show some level of confidence from quote unquote smart money. And to the degree to then which that just as an overall factor sways some people or some institutions to buy in, even if they may not see it hitting that particular target. Or I think there's also like rarely time frames, though I think there was something today that said it might take a year to get there. Yeah. I do think that it influences, and it's not necessarily because I think that, analysts are saying $25, so $25 is in the bag. Like, so many analysts couldn't be wrong. I don't think that that's the case. I just think it does persuade maybe more people than I would realize to come in and sort of start to see things in a different light. So in any case, for those of us who have been long in SoFi for a while, I hope that today was a really productive feeling day to you. And I know that, last time we had our run up and folks had sort of felt like they were really, really holding in bags for a while and had an opportunity to get out green or to, go out and then wait for a dip re-entry. Hopefully some folks today also, were able to make some moves that were in their favor where they may have been struggling previously. Okay, so lecture aside, let's look at the daily charts and then the intraday chart, and then we'll flip over to the daily, and then we'll do a quick look at the data and call it a video. So SoFi did this thing that we have been looking at over and over and over again. It's often done one of two things. This is not always, but it is often done one of two things. It starts in a certain direction in the morning, tests the VWAP, confirms it, and starts moving up away and just does that most of the rest of the day, and then finishes quite higher than if you had bought in at that hold, that bounce off of the VWAP intraday. Now, we've also seen it come up sometimes, start in a direction, come down and try to catch the VWAP, and not be able to hold support there at all, and then fall through pretty significantly. So there's the one chart that's like this slingshot where it starts one direction and then makes a strong move the rest of the day in the opposite direction. So you could really get kind of faked out. Or there's this move, which it starts in a direction, confirms off the VWAP pretty early on in the day. I mean, this was just a half hour or so into trading, and then continues in that initial direction for the rest of the day. So that's where the dip buy off the bounce in a VWAP could be a really good entry point. Historically speaking, all patterns eventually don't prove out. Well, what should I say? All patterns aren't 100%. So this is not going to happen every single time, but I do think that we've seen a better than chance playing out of this for the time being recently. So aside from that, we saw it establishing support on the 1753. These levels held up really well. We'll see these levels when we flip over to the daily chart, but 1847 is the next resistance level up that we had charted, and it went within 4 pennies of that and bounced off and then retested. It's unfortunate that on this retest it wasn't able to consume or exhaust all of the selling pressure because this is a lot of selling pressure to keep pushing the price down off of this 1847-ish level, 1850. But you know, it may just be able to catch and make another run at that again, and we'll take a look at that on the daily in a second, and I'll sort of point out what this green uptrend line is here too, because I think that that's the next most significant level. But yeah, really good intraday movement on the chart today for SoFi. Now, if we flip to the daily here, now I know this looks like a mess, but just bear with me and I'll help it make sense. So, so this was our longer term uptrend line that we've been charting, and then this was the sort of more aggressive uptrend uptrend line that we had been tracking, and then this green one was what we wanted to see the daily price action flip from resistance. You see resistance here and resistance here to support, which we briefly had here, and then it lost it, and then it caught resistance on it again, and now it bounced off of this lower trend line supports and was able to have this big burst out of here today. So maintaining this green uptrend as the new low end of support is really, really significant, in my opinion. This makes the march into the 20s much more obvious one, if it can do that, and a much more expedited one for that matter. Now, the next most important thing, especially if it can establish over this 1847 support and resistance, which we were just looking at, but if it can get support there and it can enter into this spotlight, this white spotlight here, it's not quite a channel, but like a parallel channel, but it's pretty close. But in any case, if it can get itself into here, this is a little bit more of like an escalator up as opposed to taking the stairs up, which is what we see here. Stairs stepping up, right? Up, down, up, down, up, down, but overall bullish. But this would, yeah, I think put it on a smoother, cleaner, maybe more expedited path up. But we'll have to see if it can get support of this white trend line up here. And if it can actually start working in this space, that could be a really, really significant price improvement up and maybe even through earnings, depending on if we go into these earnings pretty bullish. I could almost see, unless there's something really unfortunate in there, that that we get like a really big uptick from earnings. Now, I don't know. This is very much speculation. This is very much crystal ball territory, but it's just, and we're still like a month out from it almost. So, you know, who knows? But this is just what I'm looking at this far in advance. But so just a quick recap here: 1847 support and getting in this channel, we'll just call it a channel, would be the most expedient path to much higher price targets. At a bare minimum, keeping this previous resistance, this green uptrend line, and confirming it as support and continuing up that way would be the next best option. Obviously, if it falls through and it doesn't hold that, then we have several other support lines to pick it up. We have this one down here. Well, we have 1753, we have 1687, we have this white uptrend, which would catch it and help carry it back up, and would compress the price within this wedge, which is what we were looking at previously before it just decided to jump out to the upside today. So hopefully that makes sense, but that's what I'm going to be watching really closely. Now let's check in on the data. I don't know why this is showing NA. I've refreshed it a couple of times and yeah, not coming up. But if we just pop the estimated short interest on the chart, we do see they have it like almost as high as it's been. So current short interest percentage of the free floats, 13.82. So these shorts are really starting to feel the pain. The cost to borrow is still quite low. So that's the one factor that could be impeding anything that looks kind of squeeze-ish. And I think at this point, it's just better for SoFi to be able to establish in some of these, you know, uptrends that we've been charting for a while, and just be able to start to kick these shorts out, maybe even in a more distributed fashion, meaning it doesn't have to all pop out in one big squeeze. But, you know, we've seen them creep up 2 or just over 15% previously, and then just kind of peel off without a huge change in the price. And you see that here, right? Big bump up, and then it peeled off. So I'm hoping that they just kind of peel off and take away any sort of distorted selling pressure that their presence may be bringing into the picture here. And then, other than that, the next big thing besides earnings, like I said, earnings we have the date for, so we know when that's going to happen. But the bank charter news, the big question there, I know there was a lawsuit that came out, was it last Friday or something? That sort of, I took it, Golden Pacific Bancorp director sues bank over SoFi acquisition. So to me, and I don't know if other folks generally took this similarly, but this felt to me like an additional confirmation. We have LinkedIn profiles showing people who are going to be part of SoFi Bank in formation, and stuff like this cropping up, and this is just a pretty good look into where things are headed with this bank chart. I mean, I think at this point it feels pretty obvious. So with people sort of putting in their LinkedIn profile that that's the entity that they're going to be working for, employed by, plus then this lawsuit where they're talking about the SoFi acquisition of Golden Pacific Bancorp. It feels like these things wouldn't necessarily be coming to pass unless it was really close to happening. So interesting to see these catalysts from analysts having such big impact, and then still just trying to, again, speculate, crystal ball, mull over what a confirmation of the bank charter would bring, including if then that just brings some additional analysts, maybe upgraded price targets, or even more analysts coming in and providing price targets. So maybe it wouldn't even necessarily be the bank charter. We've often seen pretty good reaction to analyst targets coming out, especially the higher quality or the more quote unquote reputable analysts, I guess. So the degree to which even if the bank charter doesn't spring a bunch of buying, maybe analysts would come in that would help spring some buying pressure, and those analysts would come in because of the bank charter, and that they would understand the big boost that this can be giving SoFi's operational and financial capabilities in the future. So that's what I'm looking for at the moment, catalyst-wise, bank charter and what that brings with it, and then obviously earnings coming up. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, this is what I'm looking at from the chart perspective. All right, folks, I hope you had an enjoyable Monday. I'm sure there were folks that just felt really good today. So take that and just remember it when things get hard, because it's always a whirlwind. But as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.